Hi HR Nation, welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives from the world's leading global brands. Today I'm joined by Andy Valenzuela, Chief HR Officer at HireVue. Welcome to the show, Andy. How are you?
Hi, Chris. I'm great. It's Friday afternoon, so couldn't be better.
I'll be leaving a little bit before you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I think you get off a little before I do. Actually, we do every other half day Friday.
Do you?
So as soon as we wrap, it is officially my half day.
Nice. How long have you done that for?
We implemented just after COVID kicked in. And myself and Kevin, the team has enjoyed it so much. We've decided neither one of us are going to be the ones that say it's going away. So it's here for good as long as the two of us are around.
Yeah. You can't really take that back, can you?
100%. Now it is kind of ingrained. And so it's fantastic. The good thing is, man, when you can take it, people leverage it. And if it doesn't work out, they know they've got another one coming up soon. So,
yeah. Is it like frowned upon if someone tries to give you schedule a Zoom meeting after hours or
Well, you can imagine the hardest part is the global element to that, right? So my Friday afternoon isn't exactly, so it's, our European partners or Australia or Asia folks that are like, hey, remember, that means you don't contact me at all on Friday.
They're already done right now as we speak.
That's exactly right. Yes. Yeah. So it's more about just making sure, hey, reminder, not everybody's in your time zone. So really think every other Friday, just be super cautious to when you're scheduling people.
Yeah. So I imagine you're not chatting with the European team much on a Friday.
No, we are not. They may tell us, hey, every once in a while you try, but we'll all get there. A little more reminders, and we'll probably be better about it.
Amazing. Look, before we go any further, tell everyone a little bit about yourself personally and your journey to where we are now, and also a little bit about HireVue for the ones that aren't aware.
Outstanding. Sure. Happy to do it. So personally, I live in Austin, Texas. My wife is also in the world of HR. I got 3 kiddos, 14, 6, and 8. By background, I didn't actually start out in HR. So I started out in IT and on the business side of the house. I spent my first 18 years of my career at Dell. And had some awesome opportunity from a business perspective in services and sales and marketing, and eventually went and asked if I could go into the HR function.
So you asked?
Yeah, I asked.
Oh, right. Interesting. We'll get into that later.
I had an opportunity to do a lot of new site startup at Dell and worked with some really fantastic HR people. At the time, growth was crazy and you got exciting opportunities to do new things. I'm like, I really think HR could be a place I'd like to go check out. And so went to the CHRO, kind of walked through my background, and he gave me a shot. He's like, I'm interested in getting more operational minded business leaders in the function. But you're going to have to prove yourself before I can, really put you into something too crazy. And so it was great. I had an opportunity to jump right in, actually, on the recruiting operations front. And kind of the next 10 years in HR were history there. And I've had an opportunity to go lead HR at another company in the solar industry. Interestingly enough, I did a stint at SAP, which was awesome as well, and then settled back into an HR role at a small software company where I actually wore 2 hats, CHRO and CTO. So I actually led product strategy, product development, and all going back to my core roots of technology before I got the call about joining HireVue.
Wow.
And was super excited about the call. It was actually more than 4 years ago, I spoke with this headhunter, and at that time, she's like, hey, what is your dream job? I'm like, if I could run HR at an HR tech company, that would be my dream job. I love HR tech and the value that it can bring to a company. And it'd be outstanding to be able to do it, run HR at the same time. I'm getting to do it in an exciting field. And so I joined last year and just at the right time, man. I've always been a huge fan. I was an early adopter of HireVue more than 10 years ago. And I think the world of what we do is awesome. The idea that we democratize the recruiting process is outstanding. And COVID couldn't have been a bigger boost for what we do as a company. And it is really about delivering an overall end-to-end hiring experience for a candidate and a recruiter and interviewers, from conversational AI chatbots to remain engaged with your candidates, to pre-screening and assessments, and live interview process, structured interviews. So we have a whole platform of capabilities and technologies that we bring to the table, all about ensuring we're casting a wider net and removing bias from the system.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And I think now more than ever, you guys must be pretty busy.
It is crazy. We actually just completed our 20 millionth interview last week on the platform, which is outstanding.
20 million.
The crazier part of that, 20 million in the company history, over 5 million of that came just last year.
Wow. And how long has the company been around?
So more than a decade.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That says it all.
The growth has been super tremendous. And the feedback that we get from candidates and our customers have been outstanding. And so again, timing couldn't have been better. And I'm super thrilled to be a part of a great company and getting to do what I love, which is HR.
Yeah. How involved are you in the product? Because one of the benefits that I speak to many of CHROs who are also part of companies, providers in the space, so they love getting their hands dirty in being part of it. Do they hate you at this point? They're like, leave us alone, Andy. Just
that's exactly right. They like me to talk about the product and they like me to love what they've done. I'm not so sure that the product guys always love all my inputs at the start of it. And so for me, it's been, as I've been ramping in the role, really learning about what we offer and our customers and how we're leveraging it in our own process and leveraging the technology. More and more, I'm starting to get a little more into providing feedback around, hey, what I would love to see, what I'm hearing out in the market, what I think would be valuable. And no doubt that our product and engineering leaders are super supportive of getting that feedback.
Yeah, amazing. So what are your thoughts on the current state of the talent marketplace, this so-called new war on talent? The war on talent keeps coming back around every few years, but this is really, it's a global. Now it's not industry specific, it's not geography specific. It's it's open season. It's a global war on talent right now.
No doubt. I mean, it is not only what are we experiencing, but what our customers are experiencing. We just released a survey of about 1,100 hiring leaders around the globe, and all of them talk about this kind of war on talent, how much more difficult it has become to find talent, but at the same time, super excited because greater than like 70% of all the folks that we spoke with mentioned that now location is not a barrier to entry for a role. Inclusive of not a country isn't even a barrier any longer. And so imagine being on the recruiting end of that, all of a sudden where you may have been focused on one location or two locations to now say everywhere in the globe, every person in the globe can now be a viable candidate. How do we get through that? And so, tie it back to HireVue here a bit. One of the things I love about it is we're helping people solve that. Getting through that pre-screening process and an ability for folks to interview when it works best for them has been a tremendous help. But yeah, I mean, the state is crazy. Recruiters are saying they're more stressed than they've ever been before. And while it's great to have all this new opportunity to source from different locations, it certainly creates more work.
How's the pandemic changed and shifted the actual procurement process?
At first, I think it's strategically, are you even open to where you recruit from and how you recruit those individuals? And so I think companies are having to have their own internal check to say, all right, if I, again, was recruiting at headquarters or was only looking at remote opportunities for these roles, we have to have an internal reflection first, which is, are we completely open? Can every job be done remotely? Is my strategy everyone, everywhere? Is my strategy these 5 states, these 3 countries, these 10 jobs? So I think the big part of this has been, before there was kind of a blueprint of, I know this job and I know where I can hire it. This is where I go to the market. This is the universities I go to and recruit from. This is where I want them to be when they're in the job. Now you're having to reevaluate all of that. So I think in terms of what's changed, that's probably the first thing that has really changed. And then the next is, how do I actually engage and find them in markets that I may not have a brand? And so, if you're known in a location, okay, it's much easier to go out and identify and find them. But now you've got companies who are willing to hire anywhere, but may not have a brand. So that employment kind of brand element, I think, is another one. I know for me is super important. So as we're trying to enter new markets, even here at HireVue, I am actively trying to engage with our marketing leader to say, hey, I need a presence in these other cities that I'm excited about. You got to help me get some sort of presence as well. And I think, a lot of companies are having to work through that as well. And for, recruiters, how do you go through the volume of candidates that are coming in and at a speed in which they are willing to work through the process with you? One of the elements you're reading stories today, particularly on the bounce back kind of roles kind of post-COVID, or people who have been without a role, that the speed to an offer is even more critical today. They don't have the luxury of waiting. Many of them want to get back in a job. And so, recruiting organizations are having to figure out, how do I streamline my process once the candidate is engaged and interested, to getting them an offer if they're qualified with enough speed that they can consider our role.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I've been hearing that a lot from your peers. They're just swamped. Hiring teams right now are just too much.
Yeah. I am, I opened an HR business partner job for me personally, like a month ago, Chris, and, we're not a large company. And so, you're going to get, 50, 60 people apply for a job, mainly based, where our headquarters are, some of the cities where we've got other people. We opened this job, and in less than 5 days, I had 520 applicants for the job. All well qualified. So it wasn't like it was, a bunch of unqualified applicants to the role either. And so trying to ensure you're creating an experience for that many people my recruiters was just looking at me like, wow, really? 520 people on this one job that you just opened. That's a lot of work. And how do you make sure you're, again, trying to be fair and open through that process with that many candidates can be tough.
Yeah. Is compliance an issue now for you? Because that's another issue with companies now looking to remove globally, different policies, regulations. Even when it comes to your payroll, there's so much complexity that people aren't really talking about.
It's great compliance across the board. Just beyond recruiting, you now have countries to states, to municipalities and cities, even to counties, the concept of a county in the US, and how do you keep up with it? This has been a big topic with my leadership team around, hey, we can recruit and hire everywhere in any country that we want to. And I'm going to slow that ball just a little bit to say, well, I need to make sure what is required for us to do business in that, even in that city. At this point, because you have locations creating their own regulatory elements regarding employment, and it is super tough to be on top of all of it. And that just speaks to, you got to have a really great relationship also with your legal team, and that you got others that are out there kind of watching for this stuff, because there's no internal organization that can be on top of all the changes that are happening. Where we have employees.
Do you work with any partners on that? Just out of curiosity, because a lot of the leaders are saying, Chris, you've got any referrals?
Right. I don't, not having been in the job long enough, I wouldn't say I've had enough experience to say I'm ready to do referrals yet, but I will say that we are engaging with partners more so now than we have historically, because we haven't been as broad-based in terms of locations as we are today. The pandemic, I think we moved, into probably 30 different new locations than we had been before throughout the time of the pandemic. And so it did require us to stop and say, okay, who should we be leveraging? How do we get somebody to be on top of this? And not only that, how do you communicate to your employee base, like, why you have to let us know when you do this? that's the other. Well, you say you're open to it. Yes, absolutely. But we still have to know and make sure that we can support you in the right ways as an employee where your end destination is going to be.
Right. Because you had that initial rush, didn't you, where, oh, I can work from any country in the world. You're like, whoa, slow down. Slow down a little bit. That's not
100%. Yeah. And I mean, you certainly get it in Europe. I mean, it can be very different country by country, and what's required, and what kind of employment agreement you need to have, and what is the regulation that's in place. While the location may be super close, getting across that border really does change things. And if I'm an employer unaware you've done it, or don't have experience in that country, it does create churn internally.
Yeah. What do you think the risk is for companies that are going to go back to the way we worked before? Because there are many global brands that I've spoken to that are going to be announcing over the next few months.
Yeah.
You know, we're requiring everyone to return to the office.
I think the risk is going to be losing people. I actually think that companies, if they become too strict in the return back to the way things were before, you're going to lose people that now have opportunities they didn't have before and flexibility that they didn't have before. And so I do think that is a risk, and there's got to be a balance to the approach when you come back. Look, there's a population that are going to be super excited to get back into the office and back into the groove on how things were before. And there are going to be others who are like, hey, I now have flexibility that I didn't have before. I enjoy not having a hour-long commute each way. And now I actually have access to roles that I may not have had before. So if you're going to be super strict around having to be back in the office, maybe I will look at a different opportunity. So I think we will see some of that.
Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, what do you think are the benefits
of going back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, it's been a year, but I still think folks have operated as though this is short term. And so things that may not have been done before, structure that may not have been, that used to be in place and kind of came out of place during the pandemic, the ways in which you might have engaged with customers previously, so much of it has changed. I think getting things kind of back to, and I hate saying that, the new norm, because I don't think there really is a new norm here. It is just getting back to some of the kind of structured elements that occurred before. We'll certainly start to see happen. Although I hope that we all take a minute to just kind of pause and say, what did we learn and what can we improve? What can be different now? Why do we have to go fully back to the way something was before if we're doing it better now?
What are your thoughts? Because one of the big arguments I hear is we're not a remote first culture and we're an in-office culture, and that's why we're going back. That seems to be the argument. How do you react to that?
So many people prior to this who were not big fans of remote workforces used that statement. We are an in-office culture. Well, for the last year, you weren't. So you certainly had to pivot. And I think, culture is what we make it. And it doesn't have to be. I think cultures also should continue to change and evolve with what's happening within the company, what's happening externally. And, I hope for most companies, they see that they were able to be successful in kind of a mixed or remote environment. And, I always say that culture is often defined by the decisions that are made by leaders every single day. Mm-hmm. And so if your culture was in the office and in person, well, it's because you probably had a leadership team that was saying, this is our culture because I'm comfortable in office and the fact that I can see you. If you now have a leadership team that is much more open to it and is operating in a great way, in a remote way, culture shifts. And I think that's exciting. You always have to be ensuring that you're flexible enough in your thoughts around culture, that you're shifting as your employee base is and as your customers are as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. One of the interesting things as well is there's technology is now having so much of an impact on how we shape culture. So the candidate experience itself, the technologies, the tools, the processes, because we're remote, is directly impacting the culture of the organization. And I think we're only just starting to see that taking shape. Does you see what I mean? Am I making sense?
For sure. Yeah, it absolutely does. I mean, the ways in which you engage are completely different. I continue to say, look, technology, if I think about where some of the important investment in technology is going to be outside of what we're doing today from a HireVue perspective, I think that is absolutely important. But I think employee engagement technology, in ways in which you're communicating with your employee base, is going to be super critical. Keeping a pulse on what engagement looks like for your employee base is going to be super important. Feeling that in an office has gone away for many companies. I mean, we are not looking to go back to a single corporate headquarter approach. We're going to have very different space. And so also figuring out, okay, what does that mean culturally? What does the new kind of in-office experience mean? It doesn't suggest that we're remote, that we're never going to get together.
Yeah, of course.
But okay, how do we get together and when do we get together? And what will the office look like? And so, we have conversations where we envision, the office is probably going to be much more about how we get teams together for days at a time, as opposed to an office setup that is about desks and people in a desk or an office all day, every day.
I know something that's really important to you and important to all of our listeners is, and that we're working on, I think it's been kind of even more so pushed to the forefront, is how can we reduce hiring bias and increase diversity? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on both how you're doing that personally, but also with your, at HireVue as well.
Yeah. So a couple of things. I've hit on it now about our expansion out of headquarters and into much more diverse communities. So having historically been based in a single location in the U.S. And a smaller footprint of our employee base outside of the U.S., we have quickly kind of transitioned and said we need to be in much more diverse communities where we can go after diverse talent. And so we're hyper focused on that at the moment, identifying where are those markets that we want to be a part of, where do we think we can create some great relationships, not just from a customer standpoint, but with universities and with the community at large. One thing they say about diverse candidates is they like a community around them of employees. And so that's one element that we are actively pursuing right now. And that's not just in the US. We're actually taking that same approach to how we're thinking about our global expansion as well. The second piece is, and so that's how we kind of broaden the net and focus on which locations we're going to go hard on from a recruitment standpoint. In terms of the process, right? So that's top of the funnel. How do I get all those candidates into our funnel? Then it's about how am I removing bias from the system itself? Honestly, Chris, that's all about how we're leveraging our technology to do it. And so it is, one thing that we tout to our customers, and we've got to be absolutely doing the same internally. And so leveraging pre-screening and leveraging structured interviewing. There's so much that I've learned since I've joined HireVue about where that bias can exist in the system, and how consistency and the structured approach to it can really weed out the bias that exists. And so that's also a lot of what we're doing today is leveraging our own tech to help us and support us.
There's a lot of conversation around using AI to remove bias, but then you get I'm hearing a lot of concerns as well at the same time of, by definition, if someone's a white male writing the code for the AI, then it's going to have bias, right? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great conversation. I think it's one we should all continue to challenge and understand what's the best way to leverage it and utilize it. We invest a ton in our IO psychology organization and in our data science organization We are at the kind of forefront of ensuring we're getting third-party feedback and audits happening, not by request. We are self-choosing to do this, to make sure that we are walking that fine line from an AI standpoint, and that the things that we're doing isn't having a reverse effect on what we're trying to solve. And I think it is one that we are passionate about ensuring. I do think it's healthy to be challenged and to make sure we're doing things in the right way. And we're trying to be as open and transparent about it, and learn along the way as well.
Yeah, well, it's great to hear that as well. And it is a big concern for many of the leaders in the HR community that I speak to. As well. Obviously, they like the idea of it, of course, but also it's only as good as the data that you put in. So we have to go through it end to end. It can't just be you get this shiny new tool and just put the data in. You've already lost at that point. For your own team, obviously there's been such a big shift to kind of leapfrog 5-10 years into the future almost. And when we're looking at, the future of work has a whole new meaning now. What skills do you think and competencies do you think, hard and soft, are going to be required in your own team moving forward over the next, say, 5-10 years?
Yeah, it's super interesting. And some of this has I've shifted my own thoughts on some of this. So, for me, in what we're seeing, the core of just great HR business partner experience has been core to me at the moment. Like, teams are feeling and have so many issues that they're trying to solve internally, whether it is gap in hiring, dealing with the challenges of being remote, dealing with the challenges of, okay, how have the jobs changed because we're not on site with customers anymore, we're doing things differently. There's just core demand for that HR skill set. The other thing for me is I come back to the concept of not an HR generalist, but I'm also a big fan of needing generalist expertise. So those people that I feel like no matter what curveball is thrown to them today, have an ability to go off and try and solve the challenge or the issue. And so from a skill set standpoint, it's trying to find the balance of deep functional expertise, and then having some of these operational generalists that I can leverage and pivot depending on what the need of the organization is at this time. And so from an HR standpoint, that to me is critical for me at the moment. And of course, recruiting. I mean, any company to say right now, trying to make sure they've got recruiters out doing recruiting activity, they're all slammed, and they're also in high demand again, as if they weren't always in high demand. But recruiting skill sets are important to take a more macro level view. I'll come back to this leadership. And I am a huge proponent of, unless we get leadership right, everything else is going to struggle. And so at the core of what we'll be looking for and what will be important from my perspective is, do we have core leadership skills, and the people we have today are the ones that we're going to bring in. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if I've got great leadership, all the other pieces will eventually fall together. So that's certainly one big skill set that I think is going to be important, continue to be important in my mind.
Yeah. What about in terms of sort of people analytics and that area? Is that something you're working on?
From my perspective, especially as we continue to grow, we're smaller in size today, so the people analytics piece, a lot of it is known just because of our size, the nature, and it's easier to get. Mm-hmm. As we continue to grow, or other organizations, absolutely. These data today can be such leading indicators, not only in HR kind of elements like attrition or those types of things, but they can really be business influencing indicators. And so I do love the fact that data coming out of HR has become just as important as customer data or macroeconomic data for companies, because it's at the core of what we're doing. And those skill sets of course will be and I should say, will become even more in demand as we have the tech and we have organizations getting more comfortable with the people analytics that's out there.
Yeah, you're completely right about that. And it really came to the forefront this year where companies were looking to their people analytics team saying, can we run analysis on what sites are most at risk and where should we reopen? Yes. And it was all of a sudden it was, and they were doing some incredible work. There was even, I don't know if I can mention the name of the company, but I won't mention them. Even local governments turning to these large multinationals saying, what data do you have? And actually advising their local government on visa, where we're seeing spikes in our employee population because they have such a large footprint. So things that you just really didn't expect to come out of it. And a lot of the algorithms and regression tools, etc. You can just put a different set of data in as well. It doesn't have to be specific. So it was amazing to see what played out.
I mean, it's one of those. It's amazing to see, and at the same time, if we take a step back and go, why didn't it happen sooner? We measure every element of a customer or a product or an industry. We believe we know where that customer is going to click next or what they're going to purchase with one of their purchases and the next one. Why wouldn't we know if an employee is asking or searching for these three things, that it's a leading indicator that they may leave, or it's a leading indicator around where we need to go do training, or they're leading indicators around who's successful in a role. That those data and analytics are outstanding. Look, as a business guy who loves the world of HR, it's that having that data is also the best way you can connect with your peers and leaders of those business units. If you're coming in and talking to them about data that's impactful to their business, they love it. And so I think it continues to help move the function forward when we're getting people leveraging the type of data that can come from our employee base.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I want to jump into our quick fire round. So sure. I'm going to ask you some questions and you have no longer than 30 seconds to give us some amazing answers. Are you ready?
It may take more than 30 seconds, Chris, but I'll try.
For each question is 30 seconds. Yeah. What was the number one thing that was holding you back from becoming a chief HR officer?
No doubt, and I'm sure you hear it from lots of people, your own personal challenges. Mine was was not born and bred an HR person. I was not a brilliant PhD person who had spent 20 years in HR. And so it was always questioning, hey, am I good enough in comparison to my peers in HR? I just had to realize that you're just different. You just bring different skills, and those skills are going to be needed at different times at different companies.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever received?
So I will use it from my own kind of development. And this was a leader a long time ago when I was actually going through some of this mental, like, hey, is HR the right place for me? Find what makes you unique, or the experience that makes you unique against your peer set, and run with it. So find what makes you different and run with it. And it has always been, anytime I get into a situation where I feel like I may not have as much experience or depth or understanding, I go back to, what are you good at? Figure out how being good at that can help the situation, and go all day long. And creating that differentiation has certainly been helpful. Love that.
What's some books you'd recommend to our audience?
On kind of this leadership theme one, I read The $1 Trillion Coach, story about Bill Campbell. I always like when I'm in the car popping up a chapter on that, or if I've had a tough conversation with a peer or a leader that I'm trying to coach, just to go back to that one. And I think it's super simple, and I like a lot of the approaches that Bill leveraged in his history and working with execs.
How would your family describe what you do for a living?
My family would say, Dad makes sure people gets paid. That's what they believe. Or he fires people. That is the extent of what they believe that I do. I owe my friends and family for that, because anytime I show up somewhere, or the joke is always like, oh, Andy's here, the HR guy's here, we shouldn't say that, or he's probably cringing. And my kids are always like, why did they say that to you, Dad? Or why did they say you're going to fire them, Dad, if they say something wrong? So that's how my kids would describe it. Like, he makes sure people gets paid, and or he fires them. That's
probably 99% of the answers that I get as well, which is hilarious.
Yes. I'm like, oh man, if only.
Yeah. What's a common misconception that you think people have about you?
I would say probably that I can super chipper and often lot. And then that means that, hey, what he does sometimes isn't that tough. And I think portraying and being outwardly friendly doesn't mean that it is not super stressful and exhausting on the back end.
I completely get that.
But you do that to not put the burden on everybody else in the organization.
Yeah, I get that a lot as well, by the way.
Yes.
It's assumed that I'm always happy, and but behind it, I'm like,
that's right,
melting sometimes.
You're exhausted at the end of the day. Yeah,
love that. What are some online resources? What are your sort of go-to online resources, websites, apps that you?
Yes. So common things that people use. I love just being able to tap into websites and put me on the daily, like send me the top articles of the day. Like every morning I start my day, what came in overnight? Like, is there an interesting topic I could click on? Of course, you've got your HBR articles that I always find super interesting. But I gotta tell you, what has been most impactful to me in the last year has been all of these great, call it roundtable of peers that have come together, whether it's been by location or by function, industry. Just getting on the phone with them once a month, like my stress level comes down, what I'm learning from what others are trying or that we've tried, and what's worked and what hadn't worked. I've leveraged my peer group more in the last year than I probably have in my career. And I think because so much of it is, I need a real, not theory. Like, I didn't want to go read on theory. Like, I wanted to really
and let's be honest, for what we've been going through, there is no playbook.
No,
there is no online resource.
I say this all the time. Yeah,
there is no, and also it's I think, and that's one of the things that we do, as you know, putting together these conversations and networks, and it's all free, and we do that for that exact reason, and we understand the value. And a lot of the people I speak to say, Chris, just having the peace of mind that I'm not the only one struggling, that I'm not the only one going through it. It's like, oh, I thought it was just me, right? And it's just, then you can help co-create a solution together.
100%. And man, I mean, thank you to that whole crew. If anyone is watching this at some point, it's been invaluable, and I hope that doesn't stop, because I've certainly found tremendous value.
Yeah, people always say that I don't have the time. I'm like, you do have the time. The amount of time you're spending trying to solve some of these challenges, the time invested in jumping on one of those calls with your peers, trust me, it will half, if not, it will help you so much more than you realize. You do have time.
100%. And it's not just the time. It's not even just the hour or 90 minutes that I'm together with these individuals. It's man, I have a question about something I'm not sure, and I shoot an email out to that group, and getting 6 perspectives in an hour back from my peers, like that's invaluable.
Yeah.
And so, having created those and leveraging them have been awesome.
And it's a safe space as well, right? It's a safe space. And also, who does HR ask questions to internally?
100%. You don't, right? I mean, it's like they say a CEO is a really lonely place to be.
Yeah.
You don't often have people to ask the question. That's kind of similar for a CHRO. It is hard. You can't bring others into some of the stuff that you're having to deal with.
Yeah, I can't say I understand it because I've never worked today in the seat, but I hear it all the time from your colleagues as well. And
sure.
Last question.
You hear it, you probably feel it from us too.
Yeah, I can feel it. Even over a virtual call, I can feel it. Last question. What's one thing about your business that you're most excited about moving forward?
So right time to really leverage the heck out of what we're doing. And so the market, I believe that the company would have continued to grow and do wonderful things, but COVID was that forced everyone had to move to a situation and how they were going to interview virtually. And once our customers got a taste of it and what it could deliver for them, it's been tremendous. And so it makes me super excited that the concept and the idea of leveraging video interviewing and what it is opening up for a huge population of people that needed that flexibility to be able to go after a job is what gets me super excited.
Amazing. We're just clearly in the right place to make that happen.
Yeah.
Look, before I let you go, thank you so much, first and foremost, for coming on the show to share your advice, your experience. It means a lot. And I know everyone will be a lot better off for it. So thank you for that. Where can people connect with you? Where can they reach out, say hello if they want to connect?
Absolutely. LinkedIn is probably the easiest place to connect with me. I am at HR Guy Andy on Twitter as well. Or you can shoot me an email if you'd like to. I don't know if you put that out in the bio somewhere, but it's super easy. Valenzuela at HireVue.com.
Yeah, for anyone listening, it's already in the description. So if you're listening now, it's already there. So click the link, click the description below. Make sure you go connect with Andy. Look, well, apart from that, enjoyed you're going to be off soon, right, for your weekend. So enjoy your weekend.
Exactly
and
right.
I look forward to
Half day Friday.
speaking again soon. All right. See you later.
Appreciate it, Chris. Take care.
Bye.